Update. My dad stole my identity and opened 3 credit cards in my name. I turned him into the police. Original post. I found my dad used my information to open 3 credit cards over the last year. When I went to get a pre-approval for a mortgage, I was told by the lender they wouldn't be able to give me a home loan because of the defaulted credit cards. They also said I probably wouldn't be able to get a loan from any lender because of it and gave me a sheet of paper explaining what I need to do in order to fix it. When I tried disputing the cards, one of which is already in collections, the disputes got closed out as the debts were verified. I told my divorced parents about it and their answers were pretty wildly different. My dad said these things happen and that I should be more careful in the future with my social security number. Seeing as I've always been careful, that made me pretty mad. My mom said she thinks my dad might have something to do with it, since him opening credit cards in her name had a part to play in their divorce. She told me he ran up about $50,000 in credit card debts on secret credit cards. A few days ago, I ended up casually telling my dad I'm going to have to file a police report for the credit cards. He told me I probably shouldn't do that because $15,000 isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. When I told him it was keeping me from buying a house, he said I could just wait a few years until they fell off my credit report. He said it would only take another 4.5 years. When I told him I obviously couldn't wait that long, so I have to file the police report, he straight up told me not to do it and to just be more careful in the future. Once I told him I already got the paperwork together from the credit agencies, he told me he had opened the cards to pay for living expenses over the last year. He said his work slowed down a little bit, but he'd do what he could to help pay it off. He said it would ruin his life if he went to jail. I'm leaning towards going to the police anyway, but I didn't write that minute. I have everything in front of me today to go make the report. I guess I just want to make sure turning it over to the police is the right thing to do here, especially if I'm wanting to buy a house this year. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Report him for fraud. Now that he is older, a little prison time shouldn't bother him. A-hole. Report him instantly so you can have your life back. He knew this would happen, but just put it off until you grew up. If he wasn't your dad, you'd have reported him already, right? Well, think about this. Why didn't he give you the same respect and not ruin your credit because he's your father? You've got it somewhat backwards. The man ruined OP's credit because he's OP's father. He didn't do it to some random stranger on the street. He victimized his own child instead. He victimized his own child because it was easy too. Parents naturally have access to their child's social security number from the child's birth. Easy pickings. Would he do it to someone on the street? Most likely yes. He seems the type. But that's harder to do. Screwing over your wife and kid is easy because those numbers are readily available. And he banked on family love to keep himself out of jail. Report him. The same thing happened to me after my parents disowned me and I was an undergrad. I learned a lot about personal finance and got it sorted out and paid off the credit card bills. Then I find my dad trying to do it again. Told my family to stay away from me and gathered evidence that I would take them to court for the debit and identity theft. The fact that your dad is so nonchalant is giving me PTSD. Sign up for credit checking and/or credit monitoring service to prevent any further activity, and definitely file the police report. Now for the first update. I spent about half of the day reading everyone's comments and it pretty much solidified what I was going to do. The process itself was pretty easy. I went to the police department and the person at the front desk had me wait about 10 minutes before an officer came out. We talked for about 15 minutes and I made copies of all the paperwork I gave him. He told me the case would be assigned to a detective on Tuesday and gave me a pamphlet they have about how to contact the credit agencies. I was given a report number and was told I could use that now to start disputing the accounts. A detective is going to follow up with me in the next couple of weeks. I asked what would end up happening to my dad, and the officer said it looked pretty clear-cut to him, but the charging decision is 100% with the state attorney's office. He said if they decide to pursue charges, he'll likely get a warrant put out for his arrest. He also said typically if this is his first felony, he's probably going to get some sort of pre-trial diversion with court supervision or probation. He probably won't go to jail for years, but if he gets picked up on a warrant, he's going to spend at least a little bit of time behind bars. I've decided I'm okay with that, because it's obvious to me he did this purposefully. He's never been arrested before, so hopefully this is a wake-up call for him. At the same time, he completely did this to himself. I'll update whenever I learn more. Well done, Opie. I was so mad on your behalf reading the first post. It would take everything in me not to use his words against him. Jail time? It's just a few years. You've ruined my life? No, you did, by trying to ruin mine. I hope the marks come off your credit report like it's made of Teflon. Good luck on your home ownership journey. Same here. I couldn't believe how Opie's dad just expected Opie to suck it up and have to pay that fraud off themselves. His attitude was essentially, "It's okay, son. My fraud won't affect your life for too long. Yeah, I've inconvenienced you a little because you can't buy a house for 4 more years, but it'll go by fast. Oh, in the meantime, I'll try to pay back some of the debt I racked up on credit cards I created using your social security number." He did this nonsense to Opie's mother as well. I'd be encouraging the mom to do the same and get her credit cleared as well. Perhaps when she sees how Opie cleared his credit up relatively quickly, she'll pursue him as well. Makes me sick a parent could do this to their own kids. Parents are supposed to protect their kids, not burden them. My dad and my stepmom are kinda bad with money. When I lived with him, he'd sometimes borrow money but never get it back. He'd find a way to justify not paying me back by saying it's for rent or some BS. Fortunately, it wasn't too much. Maybe $80 here, $40 there. Thankfully, he never did anything like this credit card fraud to me though. I too would want to go to the police to fix my credit, but it's obviously be really hard because it would destroy our relationship. Perhaps that's what these crappy parents count on. Guilt. We're actually much closer now than when I was younger, and he never asks for money either. I am amazed that a father would do that to his child. Defrauding you and the banks. He used $15,000 for living expenses? He didn't know there are federal and state programs that will help people having a rough time. I am guessing since your mother mentioned he did the same thing to her credit, this isn't his first rodeo. It sucks you have to now clean up a mess you didn't create to get back to ground zero before you can start the loan process for a home. Your father really needs to apologize and ask for your forgiveness for being an idiot. My best friend has 2 siblings, and their father tried this with all 3 of his children. Absolutely destroyed the credit of 2 of his kids. My bestie is smart and got keen to his game even as a teenager, and was the only one he couldn't/didn't screw over, because she was so vigilant about keeping him away from any of her information, monitoring the mail, things like that. So sad, considering she was also a teen parent trying to claw her way back to stability and create a better life for her kids, and she did. I think this is more common than people realize. Mine did something similar. Was just because he couldn't control my mom's shopping habit and didn't want her hassling him. I'm pretty open about talking to people about it, and I've had a surprising number of instances where people talk to me privately to relate some similar story. They don't talk about it often to avoid generating ongoing conflict within their family. Some people still want to reconcile with their family if possible. My dad's dead now, and my mom bounced when no longer financially beneficial for her to be around, so it never has been an issue for me. Now for the second update. There's been some good, a little bad, and a little real bad progress the past few days. The good, I used my report number and dispute every account. When I checked my credit last, which everyone should be doing regularly, the one with the lowest balance was already off of my account. The other cards and the collection account are still showing, but I have hope they'll be falling off in the next few weeks. I also received a call from someone at the prosecutor's office who had a couple of extra questions for me and asked if I would be willing to testify if they charge him. I said yes, and they said they would be making a decision on their charges before the end of the month. The bad, obviously, is someone talked to my dad about this, because the last time he talked, he scolded me for going to the police and hasn't talked to me since. One of my brothers was also pretty mad at me about it and hasn't talked to me in over a week. The rest of my siblings and my mom understood where I was coming from. The real bad? One of my other brothers, not the one who was angry, found 2 open credit cards on his credit which weren't his. He checked his credit score for the first time in a couple of years, and he said it was down about 150 points from where it used to be. He's now in the process of dealing with that. He doesn't have any positive proof yet that it was our dad, but the fingers are pointing in that direction. This still blows my mind that a dad could do this to his own children. And moving forward though, I still hope to be able to purchase a house before the end of the year. Edit? Also, I think all of my other siblings, there are 6 of us, are checking their credit too. Probably for the best. I'm not a psychoanalyst, but something tells me he has an addiction of one kind or another. I've seen this behavior in others, mainly friends, family members, or significant others, and there is always a root cause related to addiction, whether it's gambling, drugs, alcohol, or all of the above. If you, your siblings, or your mom have a relationship with your dad in the future, this will absolutely need to be addressed before moving forward. I'm glad you sorted this situation out for yourself, and I'm certain it wasn't easy to do so. You also paved the way for your family members to manage the effects of this on them, as well as for your dad to correct his ways, whether or not he has deeper issues, or this was just a really crappy thing he did. Getting credit in other people's names might be the addiction. Just like when rich people shoplift, they get a rush of dopamine by doing something they know they shouldn't. Imagine spending $5,000 that's not yours and thinking it will never come back on you. And it doesn't, so you do it again. This time, the limit is higher. It's a high that doesn't affect your appearance or make you fail a drug test. That's certainly a possibility, although one would have to be a crappy person in the first place to do it the first time. So that is a worse scenario for the family. At least if there was an underlying addiction, it wasn't him destroying his kids' futures. That's a controversial statement, but I'll stand by it. Addiction is a beast, and otherwise decent people become awful in its hold. One of my best friend's ex-husbands had a bad injury. They put him on painkillers he didn't need to be on, and he became addicted, then became abusive, spent their life savings while trying to procure more or alternatives, and destroyed both of their credit to boot. She's still rebuilding to this day. Unfortunately for her, it was well within his legal right when it came to the financial stuff, since they were married and accounts were joint. So she doesn't have the option to quick repair her credit like OP is doing. She also spent the majority of her personal savings to help him send to school for his master's, so the bleeding dry began even before that. But otherwise, this man was good to her until the addiction kicked in. That's sort of what this situation reminds me of mainly, hence I think there is some other underlying problem that will not go away even after he served his time. Although I can recall from OP's account in other threads if his dad was always this awful. Last story. Am I the a-hole for exposing my husband online? Original post. I, 28 female, recently discovered that my husband, 32 male, had been not only unfaithful, but also financially irresponsible. I had been struggling to pay bills since he had lost his job, but it turns out he had been squandering our savings on expensive dates with not one, but two women. When I confronted him about his infidelity and financial negligence, he showed no remorse and instead accused me of being too demanding. I felt betrayed and enraged, so I decided to expose him on social media. The financial strain in our relationship began when my husband lost his job. I had been trying my best to keep our finances afloat, juggling bills and expenses alone. It was a stressful time, and I thought we could make it through together. I was wrong. During a shift at work, an anonymous source reached out to me. They shared screenshots of conversations between my husband and one of the other women he had been involved with. These chats reveal details of their plans, their relationships, etc. At that moment, I felt a wave of anger washed over me. I couldn't believe how carelessly he had treated our relationship, our finances, and me. My husband, whose dad was a pastor, liked to preach about loyalty. But when it came down to it, he was running around with not one, but two women behind my back. Talk about hypocrisy, huh? Feeling angry and betrayed, I decided to put my husband on blast on social media. I uploaded all the evidence of his cheating and tagged him and his father, letting everyone know what a two-timing jerk he was. The fallout was massive, and he found himself in the spotlight, exposed for the hypocrite he was. Despite the mountain of evidence I shared, my husband's dad was still defending him like a loyal knight. He called me a liar, dismissed the screenshots, and claimed his precious son wouldn't do something like this. Talk about denial, right? Meanwhile, I was already deep in the process of filing for divorce. His dad's blind loyalty was just adding an extra layer of annoyance. Recently, one of my girlfriends told me I was overreacting, and it's normal for my husband to have more partners. So I've been wondering lately, did I overreact? Edit, forgot to add, but my husband, before marrying me, posted and exposed his cheating partner, so I guess I'm returning the favor. Now for the top comments before reading the update. One of your girlfriends thinks it's okay for your husband to have girlfriends? That's not a person you should remain friends with. Wondering if this friend had some relations with OP's soon-to-be ex. Not much wondering on my part. A pastor condoning his son's infidelity and gaslighting the victim. Not surprising that a pastor would do this, because they tend to be hypocritical, egotistical, morally and ethically deficit. What the husband is doing is morally wrong and will continue to do so in life because daddy has his back. This man should be stripped of his pastor title as he's clearly unfit to teach the Bible. To the wife, to hell with him. Find yourself someone who won't treat you like that. Thanks for such kind words. I hope you find peace and a better life you deserve. Brace yourself and lean on those you can really trust. Perhaps not the church folks that are connected to this pastor. Mini update. Wait, do people actually think my friend is one of the women he was with? Now that I think about it, possibly. I didn't add this because I didn't think it was significant, but my friend I mentioned here, one of my girlfriends told me I was overreacting, and it's normal for my husband to have more partners. We'll just call her Emma, female 25. Emma used to work with the same company my husband worked at. They did once go on a business trip together. My husband told me they didn't share rooms back then when I asked. But now that I realized it, the company only provided one room. Of course, she's been with him. Why else would another woman defend a cheating man whore? To her friend, OP needs to get checked for STDs and bounds. Then it's also weird that she's essentially telling you to stay with him if she's one of the affair partners. Because Emma doesn't want him. She just wanted fun time with him. Either that or he asked Emma to speak to OP. Full update. Thank you all for your support and input. After much reflection and considering the advice you've given, I've made a difficult decision to move forward with a divorce. While it breaks my heart to end my marriage, I can't ignore the pain and trust that has been betrayed. It's time to prioritize my own well-being and move forward. I've also got a lot of people telling me apparently my friend was probably sleeping with my husband. I looked into the matter and I don't want to give exact details, but you were right. I want to express my gratitude for everyone who has taken the time to offer advice and support. I know it's easy to doubt online stories, especially on a new account, but your insights have meant a lot to me. While this is a painful journey, your kindness helps make it a bit easier. Thank you all for listening and offering guidance.